that right there, all those springs, all those gizmos and gadgets, what do they do? The scariest thing in the world to some people is a guitar with a trem system or a tremolo. Why? Because of that right there. All those springs, all those gizmos and gadgets, what do they do? So let's take this over to the bench. We're gonna check the float of the bridge. And what you're doing is you're going back and forth on the strings to achieve a certain amount of float on the actual bridge plate and ensuring that the guitar is staying in tune. That way you can come up like a semitone or a whole step to achieve different nuances in playing. If I own this guitar, I've got to take it to a guitar tech and spend hundreds of dollars to get this fixed. I'm never gonna own a guitar like this. You're selling yourself short, they do a great thing. And it's pretty easy to set up. As long as you've done all the steps beforehand, this part's gonna be a breeze. So let's take this over to the bench. We've got all the tension on the system. The frets are nice and level. The fretboard is nice and level. We've made sure that the nut is slotted appropriately. We radius the saddles and verified that it was radiused appropriately by measuring the bottom of the string to the top of the fret on the 12th fret. So now let's address the big piece, which is this tremolo system. You're gonna go through and tune all your strings, starting from the high E string, then the B, so forth and so on to the low E string. So let's take this over to the bench, show you how to do it. So what I'm gonna go through and do is get them all roughed in, starting with the high E string to the low E string now. Bring them all in roughly. All right, now that I've gone through and tuned them all to E standard, seeing what's happening. So I'm gonna detune my E a little bit. And I noticed that they're all hitting the tuner right about the same spot. You're gonna notice a trend. When you come back to that high E string, it's either gonna be sharp or flat a little bit from your target that you want. Say if you're tuning to E flat or E standard or D, don't worry. You want them all hitting about the same on your tuner. So let's take this over to the bench. All right, now that I've gone through and tuned them all to E standard, seeing what's happening. So I'm gonna detune my E a little bit. And I noticed that they're all hitting the tuner right about the same spot. My tremolo system is floating at roughly 3 millimeter, which is gonna give me a huge drive. So if I go to raise it, it'll definitely raise it a whole step, maybe a whole and a half a step. So from E to G, it would definitely do that. What I want to do is send the 2 screws that are in the body, send those in so it adds tension. You're gonna come back here to these 2 little screws. And based on what's going on with the tuner and the high E and low E string, you're then going to advance the screws or draw them out. So let's take this over to the bench, show you how to do it. What I want to do is send the 2 screws that are in the body, send those in so it adds tension while keeping track of where my low E string is tuned to. And we want to do this evenly. So I'm going to turn my tuner around, take this off and make it a little bit easier on me. I'm going to watch my tuner as I tighten these screws in. Remember, a little bit at a time because you want even. All right, they're pretty much there. I'm just gonna give them each not even a quarter of a turn, like an eighth of a turn. All right, that put it right on the nose for the low E string. The high E string is a little flat. That's fine. We can go ahead now and give it its final tune. This is going to set your guitar up to stay in tune based off of the string gauge and how you want to tune your guitar. D, E flat, E, so forth and so on. So let's take this over to the bench, show you how to do it. Give it its final tune. All right, now all you gotta do, since we're all set up, is noodle away and tune it back up as you get done. You went through and adjusted your tremolo to where you got just enough float in the back to give you that nice tone. To where when you play, you get that nice little tremolo feel. Thanks for swinging by. Me and Blake look forward to seeing you again. Say bye, Blake.